So, September has finally hit, and of course, that means it's almost October, and that's close to Halloween. And at least personally, I already start getting the Halloween vibe in mid-August, and I kind of just start watching a lot of Halloween-esque movies pretty early on. So, in this video, I wanted to give some recommendations for some Halloween or autumnal horror movies that I've seen and personally really enjoy. So these are in no particular order, and not all of them are strictly on Halloween, but at least to me, still kind of give off that vibe. So up first is the movie Haunt, released in 2019. Set on a Halloween night, the film follows a group of friends who enter a haunted house attraction only to find that some of the nightmares might just be real. Now, this is more like a slasher movie, and as the premise suggests, it mostly takes place in a haunted house attraction. And personally, I absolutely love movies set in these scare attractions. I think it's a really, really enjoyable setting, and I kind of wish there were more movies with that setting. And honestly, Haunt is one of my favorite more recent horror movie releases. I really do highly recommend it. I think it's well acted. I think the characters are pretty interesting to watch. It's very tense and there's a lot of scenes that are definitely really well made and scary and really well shot. And overall, I just personally really, really love this movie, and it does have very much that Halloween vibe, so I do highly recommend it. Now, continuing with kind of a similar movie is Hellfest, released in 2018. So, this movie also follows a group of friends going to a Halloween horror attraction who find themselves stalked and killed by a serial killer who's following them. Now, I will say I do prefer Haunt to Hellfest, but the set design of all the horror attractions and stuff in Hellfest is genuinely incredible. The Halloween and horror attraction feel is really, really good, and I really just for that I think this movie is worth a watch. I think as far as the plot and characters, it's not the best written or the greatest thing out there, but it's a fun little slasher movie, and the vibe is there, and I really do enjoy this one and recommend it as well. Now, for this next one is technically, I guess, it's not, there's no set time put for this movie, but the next one is Urban Legend, released in 1998, a movie set on a university campus where a series of murders take place that are modeled after popular urban legends. Now, as I said, I don't think this movie has a time specified when it takes place, but I do think it's kind of autumn-esque. At least that's the vibe that I get. It gives me at least kind of more autumn Halloween vibes, and this is a post-Scream slasher. In my opinion, it's one of the better ones. I do personally love slasher movies, and I also really think the university campus setting works really well. Again, I guess because this is a slasher movie, I can't exactly say that, oh, the characters are incredible and really deep. Deep isn't, I guess, the right word, but more maybe they're not super complex or anything. But this is a very fun movie. So next up is The Body, released in 2018. Now, this one is technically an episode and not a movie, I guess. So there's a horror anthology series called Into the Dark, where every episode is movie length, and every episode follows a holiday that happens on the month that the episode is released. As far as I know, none of the episodes are connected to each other. I think there are maybe some sequels to some, but the episodes themselves are not connected with characters and stuff. But I will admit this is the only one I've seen so far. So The Body is the first episode that was ever released, and it follows a professional hitman who is trying to transport a body in plain sight on Halloween Day, but people around him just assume it's all part of his costume. Now, this is another one where I'll say, like, as far as the dialogue and like characters, it's not like the greatest thing out there. There are moments, specifically dialogue wise, that made me kind of groan and really dislike it. But in general, like, again, the Halloween vibes are there. It takes place on Halloween, people are in costumes, and it's just like a fun little silly movie. And I like, if you're willing to overlook some bits of bad writing, it's definitely like an interesting watch. Now, this next one is honestly my favorite movie on this list, and I would say maybe one of my favorite horror films that I've seen in more like recently. That is the movie Boys in the Trees, released in 2016. Now, this film is about two boys who reconnect over their memories and fears on Halloween night. It takes place in the late 90s, and I think this movie kind of changed me, honestly. I absolutely love this movie. It's more fantasy and drama than straight up horror, so I can't say it's like a scary movie, and it's also not really like a fun movie to watch. It's definitely, as I said, it's more of a drama movie and it's quite sad, but it is gorgeous. A lot of the, like, visually, it's incredible, and it's like well acted, it's well written. I genuinely loved this movie so much, and I'd like almost never see people really talk about it much. I feel like it's very underrated. I I just absolutely love this movie. So if you're at all intrigued, I really do recommend it. Next up is The Midnight Hour, released in 1985. It's about a group of friends who unlock a centuries old curse on Halloween, and their small town becomes overrun by the undead. Now, this movie is like a comedy horror, but it's more comedy, I would say, and is definitely meant for more of a younger audience. It's not a very scary movie, I would say, but it has like some really cool costumes and it's really fun. I remember I watched this with a friend of mine a couple of years ago, and we both really had a lot of fun watching it. So, hey, if you want something kind of like that, this is a pretty good one. Another one I personally would say is more fun than scary, but is the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark movie, released in 2019. Now, this movie takes place in the late 60s, and the start of it does actually take place on Halloween, and then like the rest of the events kind of are after Halloween. And it's obviously based on the title. It is based on the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books, which I did read them as a kid, and I actually still have one. As I said, I do have the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark book. One of them. I do remember having more, but yeah. And I really loved just watching this movie and seeing all the like visuals that scared me as a kid in like movie form, especially her. I hope you see it. I remember being so scared of her as a kid, and so kind of like seeing her and seeing all these like different visuals that like really freaked me out as a kid, and just seeing them on the big screen was just gave me so much joy. I absolutely loved it because this was pretty much one of the like earliest memories I have of sort of getting into horror stuff and being like a 6-year-old, like 5-year-old, 6-year-old kid and just reading the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books. But yeah, I think the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark movie is also like loads of fun to watch. It's I do think it's meant for like a bit of a younger audience because the books themselves were meant for kids. But the visuals are great. I think the characters are fun to watch, and it does have some genuinely like pretty creepy moments, and so I would highly recommend this as well. And I hope we get that sequel. I think there was one announced quite a while ago, and I guess slight spoiler alert, but the movie itself does kind of imply that there would be more to the story, so I do hope we actually see it. I would be very interested in that. Next up is Hell House LLC, released in 2015. Now, this is a found footage horror movie that follows a group trying to basically change an abandoned hotel into a Halloween horror attraction. So this is the first installment in the Hell House LLC franchise. I actually haven't seen any of the other movies. I've only seen this first one. I will say the biggest weakness of this movie is that some of the characters are fucking insufferable. I find this really common in found footage movies, at least found footage horror movies. There's always at least one character that you just hate so much. But other than that, like, this has some really great scares, and I remember the first time I watched this, there were some scenes that really freaked me out. I think like ultimately it is still a pretty good Halloween watch. And finally, if you're okay with more like lower budget movies, I can recommend The Barn, released in 2016. It's a movie set in the 80s on Halloween where a group of friends find an old barn and awaken the evil inside. Now, as I said, this is quite low budget and it does show, you can definitely tell, but it's just another one where I would say that it's just a fun movie, and I especially enjoyed the kind of like villains, and there are scenes that really do have a lot of the Halloween vibe, and it's not like an incredible movie, but like another one where it's just fun. Like, I feel like with most of these movies, I would say that maybe they're not the greatest thing out there, but they're just a fun, enjoyable watch, and I think that works for Halloween because, Halloween is fun and enjoyable and spooky, and that's what you kind of get with a lot of these. So, yeah, those are pretty much all the recommendations for now. If there are any other types of movies that you would be interested in for me to recommend, honestly, let me know. I really enjoy sort of recommending movies to people because I've seen a lot of horror films. I really love horror films, so I like when people ask me to recommend stuff. So yeah,